think to ourselves, Justin, like, well, if they knew who I was, they wouldn't love me. So
I didn't know that you were affiliated with Underground Railroad.
yeah, I had the chance to go on about a dozen ops with them. I haven't been, it's been 4 or 5 years now since I did any, but yeah, man, it was a wild time. The name of my coaching program, We Are the They, comes from one of those ops, actually.
Oh, tell me. Yeah.
I think a lot of men settle for what's comfortable instead of what they want most. A couple of my buddies that were there, and they're like, dude, you might want to sit on that one for a minute. Like, I just reached the peak of my career,
Yeah, hit pause on that, hippie.
Yeah, and I was like, no, I got...
Jimmy, how are you today?
Life's good, my friend. How are you doing?
So good. So good. Thanks for joining me today. I want to start off by asking a question. I stare at YouTube thumbnails all day. I know kid content on YouTube really well, which is a strange thing to hear a grown man say, I'm sure, because these are my specialties. In your life with your coaching group and everything you do in relationship to men living in the modern day and age, what would you say most men, I don't know, are kind of struggling with or lacking in their lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things. That's that's the whole reason I formed my coaching program is I kind of, back into the story a little bit, like I'd been in my career for 17 years. I was one of the top real estate agents in the country, #1 in Utah 4 years ago. I just sold a $32.5 million house, which at the time was the most expensive home ever sold in Utah. And honestly, dude, like I just wasn't feeling fulfilled. It wasn't doing it for me anymore. And I kind of leaned into this question of like, geez, like where could I have bigger impact? Where could I maybe affect more people? Right. And that put me on this journey. And the reason why I mention all that is because it kind of looks like, oh, Jimmy just started this thing. It's like, no, I put a ton of time and attention and tried to figure out what am I the best at helping other people out? Where could I create the most value? Where am I truly an expert? And I realized like two things that I'd always taken for granted that, I just didn't even know what I didn't know, that most people struggle with this. Number one was ability to just meet and have deep connections and friendships. Like, I think the biggest problem that men have is it's very difficult. We live in a day and age where it's very difficult for men to find true friends, like really deep connections. And, we know over a quarter of grown men don't have a single person they consider a best friend. 55% of grown men don't have a friend group. And so I think that's number one, the biggest problem that we are facing. And that, for me, I was like, oh shit, like I know exactly how to help people form this and how to do this. And, all my best friends had connected through me. In fact, one of my closest buddies going through hell right now, something that's happening in his life. And he texted me this morning. He said, hey man, can I come over? I need to talk to you about this stuff. And that he's going through. I said, yeah, man. And he was about a half hour late. And I texted him, I said, hey man, you still coming? He said, yeah, sorry, I'm just on the phone with so-and-so. It was another one of our best friends that I had connected him to about 2 years ago. And he was helping him through this huge thing, that he was working with. And it just kind of was cool. It's just like this extension of like, and he even told me afterwards, and we had about an hour conversation this morning and it was pretty emotional. He was crying and he said, dude, if I had the same friends as 5 years ago, I don't think I get through this. I honestly don't think I would have seen the light at the end of the tunnel. He's like, to have people like you and, names a few of our other friends where I can just like go to and I know have me and support me at this time. He's like, he's like, I just feel so lucky. And so that's number one. And then I think the second one is I think people get too comfortable in life. I think that men, we live in a society that's very comfortable. I mean, it just is, like, dude, if I want any amount of food that I want, I can have some college kid drop it off at my door within 45 minutes. That's ridiculous. That is a crazy thing to think about. We live like nobody in the history of mankind had the type of royalty that the average American has today up to about, 100 years ago. I mean, if you think about it, the amount, I mean, I was just talking to somebody about why porn is a problem for, it's like the average high school or college kid or just any man in general has more access to naked women than the wealthiest, most amazing, incredible man that ever lived up to like 50 years ago. And so like, it's not good for society. Like there's these issues that we have, right? There's this comfortability that comes. I think a lot of men settle for what's comfortable instead of what they want most. And so it's just very easy. Like it's the reason why cold plunging has become popular. It's the reason why I emphasize, actually having a routine and doing the hard thing or getting up on time or having a diet. It's why, 6% of the people in the United States, of the men in the United States are millionaires, only 2% have abs that show. And think about
Whoa.
that for a second, man. That's
Whoa.
pretty wild. There's 3 times more people have figured out how to be a millionaire than to how to be in shape in America
Whoa.
today. And so you start
Whoa.
kind of looking at some of this shit, and it's like, wow, all right. Like real talk, like it's just really easy to be comfortable.
It is. Well, okay. To your first point, like I see my kids go to the park and they make a friend like that, or they go to the trampoline place or the public pool or whatever. They make. It's so hard as an adult man to make friends. Where do you
Yeah, I
go?
mean, deep friendship, it's like
Yeah.
that's again, like I go through a whole series. My entire job, my entire coaching program could be summed up in one sentence. I create environments that are safe enough for men to feel seen and to be able to be vulnerable, authentic, and in integrity. That's the whole thing. So my whole job is to create that space, and I do that through a series of exercises and events. So some of the things that we do, just as an example.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I just took 70 guys to go run with the bulls in Spain. You talk about that uncomfortable feeling or pushing yourself past your fears. I have them jump off a cliff the first weekend that we're together. It's 250-foot free throw before the catch, they get caught by the rope. I have them walk on hot coals. I have them jump off of cliffs at Lake Powell. I have them, swim with sharks. Do all these things, but then the things that really help them be vulnerable is getting up and talking about their feelings in front of the other men. It's when I have everybody stand in a circle and I ask a series of questions, and if it's ever applied to you, you have to step in the circle and be seen. And I start out with very comfortable questions like, if you know anybody who in your immediate family died when up till now, step in the circle. If you had parents divorced when you were a kid, step in the circle. All of a sudden I say, if you've ever been cheated on by a spouse or girlfriend, step in the circle. If you've ever cheated on your spouse or girlfriend, step in the circle. If pornography is a problem in your life, step in the circle. Like things like this, you start kind of going into some more details, and guys are dying to be able to be vulnerable and to be able to share kind of the shit that no one wants to talk about.
Right.
But it's not comfortable to do it. And so when we create those atmospheres and we help people to feel safe and do that, it's so freeing. It's so nice to be able to, and that's when the friendships go deep. Like, you don't even realize how surface your friendships are till they start to go deep. Like I know in my life, up to about 4 or 5 years ago, most of my relationships were pretty superficial.
Sure.
In the sense that like they were real friends, but we just weren't talking about real things. All the hardest things I went through in my 20s, I did by myself. So did most of my friends. Everyone was pretending like we're all doing fine. And the reality is we were all dying to share with each other what was going on. And so that's, what I try to do is push people past that place where they're comfortable, where they're just kind of coasting, and help them, go for everything. We've heard this saying a million times, but everything you want is on the other side of fear. And it's so true, man. And a lot of times that's with our emotional side as well.
That's so true. That is so true. And life is too comfortable these days. And you mentioned food could be delivered to us like that. And the crazy thing about the food is it's not even real food for the most part, right? Like the crazy thing about living today at this time is if you eat natural organic food, people think you're on a diet. If you're not eating processed food, then like you're one of the weird ones.
Yeah, man. It's in America, we've been sold a bag, at the end of the day, it's really hard to be in shape, and you have to make it it has to be a high value in your life. I've been on this mission 2023 I just wanted, I've always justified being good enough in my weight, but I wasn't. I was 215 and right now I'm at 193, and
oh, wow.
That's where I should be living at 190. And so you just have to make decisions. I cut out alcohol 3.5 months ago. I was like, this is bullshit, dude. I'm like, I didn't drink for 34 years and then I had a hell of a good time for 7. But at the end of the day, I'm like, wait, like, what are we doing here? Like this thing poisons you. Like it makes you dumber. It makes you make bad decisions. You emotionally respond, And so as I started kind of playing through this, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm done with alcohol. And so like some of these things that, and it's like, God bless people. By the way, over here, I see the appeal of alcohol. It can be so much fun. And so I've been there, and I don't know. So it's just, I think it's this game that we have to play with ourselves. You just have to decide, like, how much do you want it? How serious are you about having an extraordinary life? Because by the way, for a lot of people, it's not for them. Like if you're not willing to put in the grind work, if you're not willing to do those harder things, like you can coast through this life really easy. It can be very comfortable nowadays.
Well, I wonder about 2 things. One, the alcohol thing. I'm not to sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist, but you got to wonder why it's pushed so heavy during, football games, baseball games, events, because it changes your frequency. It numbs us to a point where we're docile and willing to follow the leader, if you will. And I don't know, it really makes me uncomfortable when you think about that. And I watched some of your videos about your ayahuasca experience. I did ayahuasca last summer in Mexico. When you're done with an ayahuasca experience, there is no taste for anything like that at all. Your frequency's changed. And, I wanted to bury my feet in the dirt and eat whole foods.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to be a conspiracy theorist, but
Let's go.
There's the things that they make legal, that are okay to take.
Yeah.
Are the ones that make you dumb, that lower your frequency, and the things that, get you to think for yourself and makes it harder to control you, like plant medicine and psychedelics, and some of those things are banned in, Schedule I drugs. And so you start looking at it, and it's hard not to fall into, what's really going on here, thinking that way,
Right. Totally.
For me, it was just a health thing with alcohol. I'm like, think about it. I was like, Jimmy, it's, and I had sold myself this lie, because I didn't drink. I had my first drink at age 34. Literally, I was undercover when I was working with OUR and doing some things, and we were literally, the guy offered us beers. I'm like, whenever there's a good time to have your first drink, I guess it's now. I've been out of the religion of my youth for a couple of years, and I decided to go into that world and kind of try it for myself to see. And at the end of the day, I see the appeal. It can be so much fun. But from a health standpoint, my lie that I'd sold myself was, I'm only going to drink in celebration, because I never had this negative relationship to alcohol. I didn't have bad experiences. I didn't have bad interactions. To be honest, it was always really fun. And so I'd kind of started thinking like, well, yeah, I only, drink when I'm in a good mood or when I celebrate. And then I realized, well, shit, I'm going on 2 dates a week where I'm celebrating. I'm hanging out with my buddies twice a week where I'm celebrating, going golfing or boating once a week when I'm celebrating. Right. I'm like, before you know it, you're drinking 5-6 times a week. You're talking about 3,000-4,000 empty calories on top of the fact that your body's just trying to, work through all the alcohol instead of doing what it's supposed to do. And so I don't know, for me, it was like became a health thing. And then one of my mentors, I had him come speak at an event we were doing. He said, why is it that when we should be feeling the most, when we want to soak up the most of like a celebration or a good feeling, that we're actually numbing ourselves through alcohol? He's like, no, that's when we want to feel everything. I read a beautiful quote. I've been sharing this all over the place, but the secret of life isn't to feel better. It's to feel more. Whatever that feeling is. And so anything that you're numbing it with, whether it's alcohol, whether it's sexual addiction, whether it's drugs or whatever it might be, if you're doing it to numb out, whether it's just jumping on your cell phone and surfing or TikTok or whatever, right? Like we do these things to numb ourselves from feeling. And, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel all these different experiences. What you don't want to do is numb those feelings and just drown them out.
Well, and if you're tracking your macros and you enter those drinks, you're screwed.
Dude, I mean, even if you're just doing, and you justify, you're like, I'll do vodka waters, and then you do, but you're still looking, you're like, still 180 calories, like next thing you know. And so, yeah, I mean, it adds up, man. And I'm like, I'm leading men to how to be the best version of themselves. I'm like, I'm a freaking hypocrite if I'm going to be out here doing things that I know damn well aren't good for us. And by the way, like, it might not be a problem for you, but if you're allowing that, and then all of a sudden it's a problem for those around you, like, just what are we doing? And it's up to each person to make their own decisions.
Sure, totally.
But at the end of the day, you want to surround yourself with people that make those decisions easier for you.
Absolutely. I didn't know that you were affiliated with or did missions with, for lack of a better word, with Underground Railroad.
Yeah, I had the chance to go on about a dozen ops with them. I haven't been, it's been 4 or 5 years now since I did any, but yeah, man, it was a wild time.
Are you carrying weapon? Like, can we talk about that real quick? What is that like?
We can go into it.
What is that like?
I don't go undercover anymore, so I can talk about it.
Okay.
Basically, we fly down to a resort city somewhere in Latin America, and we were the team that would go in and find the dudes that were trafficking. So we'd go down to the beach, and I speak Spanish from my Mormon mission. When I was 19, I lived in Monterrey, Mexico for 2 years.
Nice.
And so we go down there, and you want people that are good at talking, good at socializing, have a high, emotional IQ and can just really read a room and things like that. So we would just go down and start talking and find the street hustler who usually knew the guy that was trafficking in that area. And yeah, man, we would go and try to do the rescue and the sting operation and everything else. And so I had a chance to be a part of, like I said, over a dozen of those over about a 2-3 year span.
What? Super dangerous.
Yeah, it was wild, man. Well, so the name of my coaching program, We Are the They, comes from one of those ops, actually.
Oh, tell me.
Yeah. So what happened is we came back from a takedown, and it was probably our most dangerous one. In fact, it was, that I'd ever been a part of. And we took down some really bad dudes. I mean, there's bad dudes in that, and then there's evil dudes. These dudes were evil. They had an organization around it, the whole thing. And on the way home from the airport, my girlfriend picked me up in my truck, and she's, I'm telling her the story, and I'm just getting into it and telling her about all the craziness and this amazing operation where we rescued these girls. And she pulls over the truck and she's like, "Hey, I don't want you doing this anymore." It's like, "What are you talking about? Did you not just hear my story? Like, we rescued these kids." She goes, "I know, but it's super dangerous. It's a bad environment." I was like, "I know, but this is like part of my life's mission now." And she goes, "Well, I get it, but like, why can't they just go do it?" And without even thinking, I was like, "No, there is no they. Like, we are the they." And as soon as I said that, I was like, "Oh shit." Like, it sent shivers down my spine. And I was like, that's going to be my motto for life. Like, everyone always is like, they need to do something about this. It's like, no. Like, we are the they. And so that became my motto, and then my coaching program.
No way. And you're right. We are the they. We are the
Beautiful.
they. What advice would you have for someone who's feeling stuck in their pursuit of their business goals or their weight loss, or, they hate their job and they're just feeling stuck in that place that we've all been?
Mm-hmm.
What would you suggest to get
so
unstuck?
there's a couple things. So number one is, and this is the first question I ask every person that joins my coaching program. Okay. And you should ask yourself this, if you're listening to this, it's the best question you can ask yourself is, if everything went right in my life for the next 5 years, what would my life look like? And the truth is I ask it that way because what normally happens, you say, if you say, "What's your dream life?" or "What would you do if you could do anything?" or "If money wasn't a problem, what would you do?" And it's like, I can't, my kids get in the way, or whatever. Like, they always have the reason why they can't. So I said, no. Right. Everything goes right for the next 5 years. What does your life look like? There's no obstacles here. And if you don't have clarity around that specific question, then you got to start there, because if you don't know the answer to that question, you're not going to be able to figure out the rest. And so once you know that, when you, okay, well, this is what I want my life to look like, then you just reverse engineer it. And so you figure out, so that's your what. Like, Tony Robbins talks about this. I mean, so does Lewis Howes, his book, The Greatness Mindset, that just came out. Beautiful roadmap on how to do this. Like, it's pretty basic. You figure out what you want. And that's the first piece. And that's what most people don't even do that. They don't even know what they want. Like, we joke about it from Alice in Wonderland, the whole, like, which road you take, it doesn't matter if you're not sure, like that whole thing. But like, it's true. Like, if you don't know where you're trying to go, it doesn't really matter which road you take. Right. And what most people do is they kind of just drift in life. Somebody comes and asks them to be a part of their thing, and they do it. And somebody needs their help with this, and their job does this, but they're not living their life by design. And so the people that I know that are truly living their life by design, they figure out what they want. And that's the first step. The second one is you better figure out why you want it. Right. Like, some people are like, I want this dream car. Well, why do you want it? Because the truth is, you probably just need to do some internal work. Like, and you're going to have that car, and within a week, it's just going to be another damn bill sitting in your garage. Like, if you don't actually figure out why you want it and certain things like that. And so, people say like, well, I want to do this or this, like, why? And if you get really clear on your why, and you actually know what it is. So I'll give you an example with We Are the They. Yeah. When I sold that house, the $32 million house, and I just was like, it was actually a plant medicine journey that I came to me, and it was like, yeah, you're done with real estate. Do something more impactful. Whoa. And I was like, shit. And I kind of fought it for a second, but I was telling the people I was with, a couple of my buddies that were there, and they're like, dude, you might want to sit on that one for a minute. Like, I just reached the peak of my career,
Yeah, hit pause on that, hippie.
Yeah. And I was like, no, guys, I know that I'm going to want to do something different. Yeah. About a year after that, I had a really beautiful experience where one of my friends had been out of integrity, and long story short, he'd gone to a strip club, him and his wife. That was a big no-no in their relationship, and he was hiding it from her. And this, as good friends do, we all were hanging out one night, and I told our other friend, and he'd been to hell and back. He had had all sorts of issues and came into an integrity. Him and his wife were on the healing path and was doing amazing. I mean, this guy he'd done the worst things you can imagine as far as a husband goes. And, but he was on his way back, and they were doing really well. Well, he finds out that our other friend, after he got into integrity, our other close friend had gone to this strip club. And so I remember we're laying there on the ground, me and my buddy, and my other buddy walks up and kicks him in the nuts. And I just go, you better not ever do that to me. And he goes, I wouldn't, because you don't deserve it, but you do. And he spent the next hour calling my friend into integrity in a way that I'd never seen in my life. And it was what true friends do. Like, fake friends will cover for you. They'll hide it from your wife. And this dude basically said, how much longer do you want to have an energetic block between you and your wife before you get into integrity? Right. And he said, do you want to tell her, or should we? And he's like, well, what if she doesn't love me? And he's like, well, she'll love you. And if she doesn't, then you got a gift because she wasn't your person, but you need to come into integrity. And we went through this whole process for an hour, and I'm just watching this. And I was just amazed. It was the only way that could happen is a friend that's been at that level calling in another friend back into integrity. And it was the best hour of my life watching this and being a part of this. And I just said, I want to do that. I want to do that for other men. I want to be a part of this. And so in that moment, I had a ginormous why. I watched. And so my friend that night went, talked to his wife, laid everything out there. And I just got a text message from his wife that night. And this is what true friends do, man. They call each other like that. And she texted me, and all she said was, thank you for loving my family. And, you know, you get a text like that and you're like, damn, man, that's what it's all about. And so I knew in that moment, I was like, I know how to create real friends. I know how to help them get into integrity so that they can feel the love they're getting. Because when we're out of integrity, the problem is we think to ourselves, Justin, like, well, if they knew who I was, they wouldn't love me. So any of the love that's being poured into them, they don't even feel it. But once you've really opened yourself up and you've exposed who you are, and then you feel loved, then you can accept the love that you're getting. And it's this path of self-love. And so that's really what's like, for me, it's what inspired me to want to do this with all these men. And that's what my program became. And so it's, you know, I spent 10 years working on myself, trying to become the best version of myself. I'm constantly still doing that. I just signed up for Tony Robbins Platinum membership so I could go to his relationship course in Maui and spend $100,000 on that damn thing. But the point is, I'm always working on myself harder than anybody else. And, you know, when we're hard on ourselves, life's easy on us. When we're easy on ourselves, life's hard on us. But I just became obsessed with this idea that helping other people to get into a place where they have self-love, they have self-compassion, they have friends, they have people holding them accountable, they have, you know, mentors that they can look up to and learn from, and they can get the skills that they lack in order to have a great life. And I had a relationship growing up with my father that, like, honestly could be pretty explosive. And we had a falling out for years, and, you know, we've gotten to this place now. I have this beautiful relationship with him. But one of the things that happened recently, about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, I had the chance to spend about 8 hours with him one night and just have this beautiful conversation. And what I realized is my dad does not know how to hold space for another human. He just can't do it. Sure. He flat out does not have the skill or the ability to just sit there, shut the fuck up and listen. Like, he cannot do it. And in this space, I was able to, like, connect with him in a different way and teach him a little bit of how to do this. And we, you know, have been able to get a deeper, better relationship in so many ways now. And so that's part of, like, again, what I'm doing is just teaching people how to even do these skills. A lot of people, they want to connect on that deeper level. They, honest to God, don't even know how. Yeah. Figure out what you want to do. You figure out why you want to do it. That's the most important part. From there, it's just, you take massive action towards that thing. Like, you just become obsessed with taking action. Like, all the most successful people, I've had over 500 people on my podcast now, some of the most amazing humans on the planet. And they all have the same thing in common, man. They're just really good at taking action. They don't need it to be perfect. They're just willing to go after it. And when they do, like, magic tends to happen, you know? And so that's the third piece is, once you know what you want to do, why you want to do it, you have all the motivation you need at that point, and just pouring massive action into it. And that's how you get out of a stuck place.
That's how you get out of a stuck place. And I love it. And you explain that in a very easy to understand, digestible manner. Thank you for that. And I also think that it's not hard to set yourself apart. Whatever it is you want to do, most people seem to be stuck and complacent and, like you said earlier, comfortable. And so whatever it is you want to do, if you just keep doing it, I saw a video of yours earlier today where whatever it is, just grind at it for 10 years and you'll find success. With YouTube, we say, don't quit YouTube until you've made at least 100 videos. Mm-hmm. Whatever it takes, 100 long form videos, and then you can figure out what you're doing well and what you're sucking at, or whatever.
So yeah, I mean, I think people forget that, like, everybody that's great at something had to suck at it at one point, you know. And here's the problem with success is, people that look at it, they think one of two things. They think, oh, that person just has a special ability to do that thing, because the alternative is, oh, they had to work their ass off to be that good at that thing. We'd rather look at a professional athlete and go, oh, he's just born that way, and he can just run and jump higher than the rest of us. No, a person will work their ass off to get there. Talent will take you a little bit. But, like, the alternative is looking inward and going, oh, I have to work that hard. Like, you know, like, think about Kobe Bryant's a great example. I recently interviewed on my podcast Carlos Boozer. He used to play for the Jazz, all-star power forward, played on 2 Olympic teams. And I asked him, I said, what's the difference, between the great ones in basketball and the guys that were just good? And I asked Tim Hardaway the same question. And they told me, they said, look at Kobe Bryant, like the ones that wanted to be great, the Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Like Kobe, when he was in high school, was about the same caliber of player as a lot of other guys. And he said, I need to be so much better than them. And so he would spend an extra 2 hours every day. It means he got up at 4:00 a.m. He worked because everyone else was already working 5 or 6 hours on it. So he had to work those extra 2 hours. And over time that accumulates this edge, right? When I was in real estate, when I started out, I wasn't any better than anyone else, but they would really work like 3 or 4 hours a day. And then they just, do all these things pretending like they were busy. Sure. And so it wasn't very long. I mean, just a matter of months before everyone went, what the hell's going on with Jimmy? How did he do this? But the truth is I was putting in 3 work days to every one they were putting in. And so of course I was getting 10 times the results.
And did you sell, am I right, 98 houses in your first year?
My first full year was 98 homes. Yeah.
That's wild.
Me and one assistant. Yeah.
That's wild. I'm waiting for my fingerprints to get back. As if I don't have enough to do. I took all my real estate classes here in Idaho and waiting for my prints to get back. Then I'll be licensed. My schedule's full. I'm just such a believer in content creation, and I've done well with it. So I want to kind of reverse engineer some of the things I've done, focused on real estate and generate leads. That way it's not.
Yeah, I mean, realtors are terrible at marketing. So if you're even good at all, you very quickly can go to the top.
Sure. Yeah, I'm pumped. Just side note. Yeah, I'm pumped. So the difference between those who are successful and those who are unsuccessful is just, I don't know, the old adage.
Here, let me put it in a quote for you, because
let's do it.
I keep this on my wall.
Okay.
The difference between successful and unsuccessful people is that the successful people have merely learned to do the things that unsuccessful people don't want to do. And that was my mentor, Mike Ferry, who's like the GOAT for real estate coaching, used to say that all the time.
How do you argue with that? Yeah.
Yeah. Just do the things that the unsuccessful people don't want to do. It's the hard things. Like, it's very easy to go to the office as a realtor and shuffle your papers around, go talk at the water cooler, jump on the MLS. It's really hard to call for sale by owners for 3 hours to start your day every day. And then to follow up and then to go on appointments that you don't want to go on, And so it really is in any industry. I mean, just, we get paid directly proportionate to the value we bring to the marketplace. What can you do that very few people are willing to do? What can you do that very other few people are doing? And that is the thing you're going to get paid the most for.
And that's probably part of the reason I failed at every regular job that I've ever had. And I haven't had a regular job in, 15 years or so. Well, plus or minus. Because I want to see the fruits of my labors. I don't want to depend on a boss or someone, giving me the gold star because I showed up early. I want to show up early because I'm going to do the hard thing that no one else wants to do.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. But no, I'm feeling guilty now. This wall right here is the other side of this wall right here is the gym in this building. And if I was any closer to the gym, I would be living in the gym. I need to do the hard thing that.
Well, by the way, the gym's not the hard thing for you. The hard thing is, why do you overeat? Let's just get real about it. Sure. Why are you eating bullshit? Sure. 95% of how you look is the food. And so ultimately it's digging into that and finding out the psychological reasons or the behavioral patterns that you have around food, because you probably use it as a coping mechanism. And at the end of the day, look, you can go to the gym all day long, but if you don't dial in your diet, that's where the discipline is. Yeah. It's not going to matter, but you're the one that knows that. And you got to figure out a why. And by the way, we're very simple humans. We are motivated by 2 things. Tony Robbins talks about this all the time, either by avoiding pain or gaining pleasure. And unfortunately, we will do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure. And so for you, the pain of not eating whatever you do, or the pain of going to the gym, is greater than the pain of just being a little bit overweight. And so it's that's where you end up landing. Same as me. When I'm, it's why I know, because it's no, ultimately I'm shit. I'd rather just have the Kit Kat than have the abs. And if I don't have a big why around that, then I'm going to eat the damn Kit Kat. They taste really good. Right. And so, our food has been genetically modified to be the most addictive that it can. A Dorito is a piece of cardboard, and they make that thing taste so damn good that there's no chance if they're in my house, I'm not eating them. And so it's when you start to see the way that the game's been rigged against us, you better get real clear on your why, or else you're just not going to, you can be right next door to the gym. It doesn't matter. I
Sure.
have a cold plunge out my back door. If I'm not motivated to why I want to trust me, it's not getting used. It's just it's a hot tub that doesn't work, you know?
Right. Right. Well, the funny thing about a Dorito is, when I'm counting my macros, I try to stay between 20 and 30 carbs a day. It works for me. But a Dorito has like 1 carb. So before you know it, you've eaten all your carbs in a handful of Doritos.
Oh yeah. I mean, the food that it's the problem is there's no nutrients, but there's a lot of carbs. There's a lot of calories. And so, dude, if you're not very disciplined, I'll look at my thing. I track every calorie. And like, if I've got 500 to go, I know I'm having halibut the rest of the day. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like the only thing that fits with no carb. So it's like, I just, it's getting clear on, but again, it goes back to your why. Like, for me, if I'm being honest, I always justified. I'm like, I look good in clothes. Girls still like me. By the time I'm naked, I'm already, home set. And so it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to be who I'm being. Then all of a sudden I was like, wait, like there's a lot of the guys that I coach that are kind of letting themselves go because they're seeing my example. And then I was like, I wasn't confident 100% in who I was seeing in the mirror. And then all of a sudden it was like, wait, there's a level here that I'm not getting to, that if I'm going to teach other men how to do this, like where else is this showing up in my life? And so I just decided to really dial it in, and I've felt so much better this entire year, just being at a lower weight, being more confident and doing that. And by the way, like a couple of years ago, I wanted to be Spartacus for Halloween. I bought the actual costume from the TV show Spartacus. Like I bought his costume that he wore. Yeah, like not a replica, like the actual one that he wore on set. And so you can't show up as a fat Spartacus. And so I got myself in the best shape of my life for Halloween. The problem is my only goal was to not be a fat Spartacus. I didn't have a goal to be healthy. I didn't have a goal to be in shape. I just had a goal not to be fat Spartacus. And so like the day after Halloween, like shit, the night I was dressed as Spartacus, we went to Roost Chris and I had probably 10 drinks. And then by the way, it was November 1 was the next day. And I was like, well, I'm going to do 75 hard the New Year's. So I'm going to enjoy the holidays. Dude, I put on like 20 pounds between November 1 and January 1. And then all of a sudden they didn't want to come off. I was like, oh shit. And it took me a year to get back to, just where I wanted to be. And so at the end of the day, your motivation has to be one congruent with your identity, you have to make an identity change as a real change. Like when I changed was when I said, I am not a person that weighs over 200 pounds. Right. Like I weigh 190 pounds. And then anything that's off of that, I don't feel right about it. Like when I'm just like, yeah, I weigh 215, like that's my identity, then it's not a problem. But if all of a sudden I'm like, no, I'm 190 pounds and I'm sitting there and it's like, oh shit. Because dude, like I love sweets. I was raised on that shit. Like little Debbie was my babysitter growing up. Like, look, I've been modified to not be able to eat healthy and it's in my core. But at the end of the day, like, what do I want? Like, how do I want my life to look?
One thing I'm always surprised by is if you just stick to the plan and track your macros, for me at least, it comes off easily. You feel great. There's no downside really if you commit and just follow the plan.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I mean, and that's, by the way, like any change in life, people think there's like this one thing that's going to change it. It's not true. It's like, it's consistency over time. That's all it is. It's like, in your case, in my case, when it comes to weight, it's an identity change. It's going, wait, who am I? Like the reason we yo-yo is because our identity is the guy at 215. So anytime we get lower, it's very easy to go back. But when you change the identity of who you are, then all of a sudden when you're up there, you'd feel terrible. You just never be able to go up to that weight. And so for me, that's what the change had to be. It's the difference between saying like, oh, I don't drink, or I'm not drinking versus, I don't drink alcohol. It's like the difference between say, oh, I'm not drinking versus I don't drink, like I'm not a person that drinks or I don't drink alcohol. Like it's a very different thing to say and believe.
Right. Do you do, we're about the same age. Do you do TRT? If you don't mind me asking?
I do. Yeah. I've been on and off for like 10 years, to be honest. I think, I probably started a little bit early. I had some insecurities and thought that, if I did tests, and I did a lot of the over-the-counter stuff. If you remember some of that terrible stuff, the pills that go through your liver and all that, it's the wrong way to do it. But, the last several years I've done it through a doctor and I'm a fan of, it's the first thing. If you don't feel good as a man, you got to get your testosterone figured out.
Cool. Yeah. I need to get back on. I did it for a few months last year and then stopped, but I think it felt great.
Yeah, it's very important. I mean, look, in a lot of the stuff that we just eat, a lot of stuff that's in our water, a lot of the stuff that's in our environment, just naturally lowers our testosterone now. And that's why it's so important to do things. That's why it's important to sleep well, to, do things like a cold plunge, to just, do things that put you in a masculine sense. And TRT, I think, is an important component of that.
Well, and it's also not a bad deal to the one I did. Maybe it's all weekly, but you go in weekly and you're seen by a doctor or a nurse. Like, that's not a bad idea. Have your blood pressure checked every week, your heart rate checked. I mean, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. No, I go to a nutritionist every single week, and I get my fat percentage looked at. I get my weight, and I can't tell you how many times I walk into a gas station and what I wanted to buy was a freaking Reese's peanut butter cup and a Snicker bar or a donut or something. Instead, I ended up grabbing a Built bar or like a one bar that, was like a healthier option, or like a protein drink, because I just knew I was going to have to talk to my damn nutritionist come on Thursday.
Yeah, no, gas station food is typically,
It's one of the things I tell my guys that are trying to lose weight. I say, hey, make a simple change in your life. Just this one thing. You're not allowed to buy food at a gas station, period, for the next 30 days. That one change. I had a guy in my group right now. He's lost 30 pounds in the last 2 months just from that one thing.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. Those damn nachos, man. They're toxic, but
dude,
I get it.
There's a reason gas station food. It's good, man. Shit.
It's good. Yeah.
I've had to learn what things I can get, a lot of protein drinks and sunflower seeds. That's what I try to stick to.
Hey, yeah, not a bad deal. Not a bad deal. What, when you're trying to lean down, what, or even just your day to day, do you do like low carb or what do you prefer?
Yeah, it's all about calories in, calories out. So for me, I track my calories. I try to keep it. Right now I'm at 1,700 calories a day, which is pretty low. A lot of protein. And then I have to hit my protein goal, which is like 165 grams of protein. So in order for me to hit my protein goal, I just have to eat healthy. I mean, if I have, if I have some pancakes for breakfast, I'm at 95 carbs. I got 20 to go on the day. So good luck, And so by having a protein goal and a calorie goal, it forces you to eat good. And, if I do want to have some pancakes or a French toast one morning, okay, but you're having steak and halibut the rest of the day and maybe a little bit of vegetables or something. And so it's just kind of important to balance that, but then also just get moving, man. One of the hacks that I made with my coaching program is one of my guys meets me every morning at 7:00 a.m. at my door, and we go for a walk for 45 minutes to start the day. And it gets me up on time. It gets me moving. It gets me outside. It gets me, hanging out with somebody that I love and appreciate. And so that's a hack that I put into place. So every single day, 7 a.m., I meet a guy at my door and we go for a walk. And some days I'll double that up or whatever if I have extra guys that need walks. And just by doing that walk every day, and then I do the Peloton, a 10 incline at 3 miles an hour for 30 minutes a day. It's the fat burning zone. And that's a cheat code too, man. That's been a game changer. Oh yeah. You're drenched with sweat by the end of 30 minutes and it's very doable. You can do it while talking on the phone.
Wow. That's great. Yeah. Thank you. That's incredible. Well, I've enjoyed this conversation because, I've been enlightened, but you also kicked my ass a little bit, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, dude. Look, dude, at the end of the day, it just comes back to that why. Like, why do you want to do it? If you don't, then who cares? But if you do, like, real talk, like, too many times, like, people think that love looks like telling people what they want to hear. And it's like, I can tell you're a great dude. Like, I can tell you're already killing life in so many ways. And like, get real with yourself. The things that aren't there, like, why not? And if you want it there, well, fuck, go get it. Like, dude, what took it for me was this girl that I was hanging out with. We weren't even like dating or anything, but her ex-boyfriend was like, "Oh, you're going to hang out with that fat guy, Jim." And I was like, "What the hell? I'm not fat." But then I was like, wait, I'm a little fat. I'm like, shit. I'm like, screw that guy. I'll show him. And that was really the one that kind of ultimately got me like, no one's ever going to call me fat again. This is bullshit. I'm like, and that was like ultimate. That was it. I was like, all right, done with that. So sometimes we can use that pain to give us some success. Pain's never going to give you fulfillment, but it can help motivate you.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Mr. Jimmy Rex, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I'll put all your links in the show notes so people can follow you and check you out.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you, Justin. And yeah, reach out if I can ever help in any way. And if people want to reach me, Mr. Jimmy Rex is my Instagram. I answer all my own DMs. So reach out anytime, guys.
Jimmy, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. See you, brother.